Haribol, Namaste. My name is Janapati Das, and we are here for the Bhagavad Gita as it is class. We are reading currently through chapter 4, and I'd like to take this opportunity to pay my respects to you. Thank you for tuning in. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please do so, or encourage your friends to come and visit the site, share the videos, make comments on them, and that would be awesome. I would like to offer my respectful obeisances unto Jagat Guru Siddhaswarapananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and to his lotus feet I put my head and offer my life and my talent and everything I have to the service of Krishna and to the service of his lotus feet. I'd like to also offer my respectful obeisances to my spiritual grandfather, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Thank him for translating this Bhagavad Gita that we are reading through and reading his purports. And as instructed by our spiritual masters, we will now engage in the hearing and chanting of Krishna's names in Kirtan. So please join along. Hari Bo. Krishna Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. So, okay, we are continuing. On glasses. We are continuing reading through the Transcendental Knowledge chapter of chapter 4 in the Bhagavad Gita. And Krishna had been instructing Arjuna about how the transcendental knowledge of Bhakti Yoga and the Bhagavad Gita had been transmitted to millions of years before to the sun god Vivishvan, and a disciplic lineage was formed by the handing down to his son Ishvaku, or Manu, and Manu down to Ishvaku, and so on, and that the disciplic lineage, as we know, had been lost, so Krishna was reinstating it with Arjuna. Arjuna, of course, to highlight and illuminate the idea that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, asked the question, how is it that you receive this from the sun god, and that who is senior, this was millions of years ago, and Krishna basically had said that both him and Krishna had been many times together in the past, but as a living entity, Arjuna did not remember, but as the Supreme Lord, Krishna remembered it. And so that was, and he stated that the reason why this spiritual knowledge is disseminated to mankind and the reason why Krishna comes in so many either original forms of Krishna or as different incarnations or partial incarnations, is to, when there's a decline in religious practice, he either will descend himself or in an incarnation, or he'll send his representative like Lord Jesus Christ, who is considered to be a Shaktavesha avatar. And so that was that. He was basically saying whenever there's a decline in religious practice and a prominent rise of irreligion, and I descend myself. And then we will continue with text 8. Sanskrit. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya sadhuskritam dharma samstapara artaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Paritranaya, for the deliverance, sadhunam, of the devotees, vinashaya, for the annihilation, cha, also, duskritam, of the miscreants, dharma, principles of religion, samstapana artaya, to reestablish. I like that. Samstapana arthaya. Sanskrit's so beautiful. Sambhavani, I do appear. Yuge, millennium, yuge, after millennium. So this is yuge, millennium, but also we have the word yuga, which had, like Kali Yuga, the age, an age. So millennium, sometimes thought of as 1,000 years, but in actually getting the cases of Krishna's appearances, those are very large spans of time. So some really interesting words in here. Duskritam. Dus is a word that means to be or of or at, and skrita, du is to be, and skritam is bad. So to be bad, to be, and sometimes as miscreant, here as miscreant. So people basically, There's no happenchance that it is next to this word dharma, which is principles of religion. So there are basically, as Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada has stated in purports in the past, two types of people: those people who are in a demoniac, and those people who are devotees. So, or those people that are following the dharmic path, whether it's one religion or another, basically a spiritual path towards God. So people are supposed to live their human form of life in a godly way, with rules and regulations, and this is a godly way. There are variations in that. Of course, some are, as we've said, some are lower forms of religion, some are other higher forms of religion, but basically they're all on this path, dharmic path. But the Duskritam are the people that are rejecting Bhakti Yoga, rejecting Krishna consciousness, and they are following the demoniac path, the path of materialism, the path of basically, I am Krishna, kind of, I am God, I am the central enjoyer. And we've seen the negative effect on society that to follow the path of materialism, what happens with that. So in order to deliver the pious and to annihilate the miscreants, as well as to reestablish the principles of religion, I advent myself millennium after millennium. According to Bhagavad Gita, this is a purport by His Divine Grace. According to the Bhagavad Gita, a sadhu, and we have this word in the verse here, sadhunam, of the devotees. So a sadhu is a great devotee or holy man. According to Bhagavad Gita, a sadhu, holy man, is a man in Krishna consciousness. A person may appear to be irreligious, but if he has the qualifications of Krishna consciousness, wholly and fully he is understood to be a sadhu. And Duskritam applies to one who doesn't care for Krishna consciousness. So we have the sadhu and we have the Duskritam. So sometimes people could be possibly even following religious principles, but be a Duskritam. In other words, they could be one who is not really following God consciousness, not helping people develop their love for Krishna. And we have these people like the Pharisees, who are in the garb of religious people, but are actually demoniac in nature, leading people away, not teaching people about and Jesus Christ was not following the Jewish rules and regulations. He was saying those are outdated. There is a new covenant of the meaning of as the spiritual teacher, I am instating this Bhakti Yoga again here as love for God, love for Krishna. And he was the real sadhu, although people were thinking of him as a miscreant because he was rejecting the authority of the so-called religious leaders. So this doesn't mean that if a person necessarily is wearing the garb of a religious leader but acting otherwise, that you should still give that person respect as a sadhu. He's not a sadhu, he's a Duskritam. Such miscreants or Duskritam are described as foolish and the lowest of mankind, even though they may be decorated with mundane education. So we're talking about educated people, scientists, people in the religious cloth who are acting like demons. Whereas another person who is 100% engaged in Krishna consciousness is accepted as sadhu, even though such a person may neither be learned nor well cultured. And we have many stories in the Vedic scriptures, Chaitanya Charitamrita and whatnot, of people who were in the religious garb, but they were envious of great devotees who were very humble and not appearing to be quite religious, or maybe even born in a Muslim family. like Haridas Thakur. And I was trying to think of another example of that, one that had come to mind, but I had forgotten about it. Anyway, it'll probably come back to me. I know. I was thinking of a god brother of mine who is in the body of a white male, but he had gone to speak, and he had a initiated name because he was a disciple of Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada and of our dear Srila Prabhupada. And so he was in a very kind of liberal, sort of hippie area of Northern California, and was kind of billed as a person to speak on the Vedic principles and Vaishnavism and Bhakti Yoga. And so people came, and there was this gentleman in the back who was sitting in his robes and whatnot, and my godbrother came and he started speaking, and they said, he said he raised his hand after a while, and he said, I see that this person, so-and-so Das, I'm not going to use the person's name in this example, but is supposed to speak. When is he going to speak? And he said, well, that's me. So the person was seeing him because he was not in an Indian body or look in Indian robes, but in just regular clothes and a Caucasian body and male body, that he had no authority because he didn't look the part. So, but he is a true sadhu because he's living his life according to the precepts of his spiritual masters and applying those things and teaching others. And he has no malice or any bad intentions for anyone. But that's just an example of this sort of situation. As far as the atheistic are concerned, it is not necessary for the Supreme Lord to appear as he is to destroy them, as he did with the demons Ravana and Kamsa. The Lord has many agents who are quite competent to vanquish demons, but the Lord especially descends to appease his unalloyed devotees, who are always harassed by the demoniac. The demon harasses the devotee, even though the latter may happen to be his kin. Although Prahlad Maharaj was the son of Hiranyakashipu, he was nonetheless persecuted by his father. Although Devaki, the mother of Krishna, was a sister of Kamsa, she and her husband Vasudeva were persecuted only because Krishna was to be born of them. So Kamsa, of course, almost tried to cut the head off of Devaki because he heard the voice, as we have heard from the Krishna book, heard the voice from the sky saying that their eighth son, Krishna, will kill him. And so even though he loved his sister and was taking his sister and his new son-in-law to their home, he was prepared to kill him, and then he persecuted them afterwards, killed all their children, put them in jail, etc., etc. And of course, Prahlad Maharaj was only 5 years old, and he was a devotee of Krishna because he actually had heard the absolute truth from his spiritual master, Narada Muni. And Hiranyakashipu was, as we know this story, of Lord Nrsingadev, and Hiranyakashipu was a great demon, was a discretum in all means, but very great warrior, very intelligent, set about trying to educate his son with the best teachers in India about materialism and economics and politics, to be another great demon. Because, Prahlad Maharaj was born in the family of demons. And so, but he was the greatest devotee, and he taught all of his friends to chant, which much to the chagrin of the teachers and his father. And we know this story, of course, and in the end, Lord Nrsingadev, Krishna in the form of Lord Nrsingadev, half man, half lion, came and protected Prahlad Maharaj, was always protecting Prahlad, because Prahlad took the words of the Bhagavad Gita, the message, and surrendered his life. because he had no power. He was a small boy. He had no power to defeat the agents and the demons that were trying to kill him on behest of his father. So Lord Krishna appeared primarily to deliver Devaki rather than kill Kamsa, but both were performed simultaneously. Therefore, it is said here that to deliver the devotee and vanquish the demon miscreants, the Lord appears in different incarnations. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita of Krishna Das Kaviraj, the following verses summarize these principles of incarnation. Shrishti hetu ye murti panshe avatare se ishvara murti avatara naha dare mayatita para viyome savara avastana vishve avatari dare avatara namaha. The avatar, or incarnation of Godhead, descends from the kingdom of God for material manifestation, and the particular form of the personality of Godhead who so descends is called an incarnation. So we have this word incarnation, just like we have the word reincarnation. To in is to go in, right? Incarnate is carne, flesh. Reincarnation is to come back into another material form, right? Another flesh body, or avatar. Although in this case, the transcendental body of Krishna and his incarnations are not material. So that's an interesting point there too. Such incarnations are situated in the spiritual world, the kingdom of God. When they descend into the material creation, they assume the name avatar. There are various kinds of avatars, such as Purush avatars, Guna avatars, Lila avatars, Shaktavesha avatars, Manvantara avatars, and Yuga avatars, all appearing on schedule all over the universe. So this is brought up in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the different incarnations of Krishna. Lord Sri Krishna descends for the specific purposes of mitigating the anxieties of the pure devotees who are very anxious to see him in his original Vrindavan pastimes. Therefore, the prime purpose of the Krishna avatar is to satisfy his unalloyed devotees. So, in the beginning of the Krishna book, which the Srimad comes from the Srimad Bhagavatam, and was written by Bhaktivedanta, we've done classes on him. You remember that the Earth planet, Mother Bhumi, assumed the form of a cow because there was so much anxiety created on her body from the demons who are kshatriyas, kings, who were causing all kinds of problems. So she went to see Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma took her and the demigods to I'm trying to think of the name of it. The planet from where there's an ocean of milk, and they can pray to Lord Vishnu. And of course, as we know in the story, Lord Brahma was transmitted a message from Krishna, from Mahavishnu, that Krishna would appear shortly, that he would come and do exactly what is being said here, invent himself and reestablish the principles of religion, annihilate the miscreants and protect the devotees. And in this case, protect them from these demons and annihilate them, which culminated in the Battle of the Kurukshetra in this story that we are reading here. So it's really all wonderfully connected. The Lord says that he incarnates himself in every millennium. This indicates that he incarnates also in the age of Kali. As stated in Srimad Bhagavatam, the incarnation in the age of Kali is Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who spread the worship of Krishna by the Sankirtan movement, congregational chanting of the holy names, and spread Krishna consciousness throughout India. He predicted that this culture of Sankirtan would be broadcast all over the world, from town to town and village to village. Lord Chaitanya, as the incarnation of Krishna, the personality of Godhead, is described secretly but not directly in the confidential parts of the revealed scriptures, such as the Upanishads, Mahabharata, Bhagavatam, etc. The devotees of Lord Krishna are very much attracted by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya. This avatar of the Lord does not kill the miscreants, but delivers them by the causeless mercy of the Lord. Wonderful. Text 9. Janma karma chame divyam evam yoveti tatvata tavaktya deham punar janma naiti mam eti so Arjuna. Janma, birth, karma, work, cha, also, me, of mine, divyam, transcendental, evam, like this. Ya, anyone who, veti, knows, tatvata, in reality, tyaktva, leaving aside, deham, this body, punaha, again, janma, birth, na, never. Eti, does attain, mam, me. Eti, does attain, saha, he, Arjuna, O Arjuna. Translation, text 9. One who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal abode, O Arjuna. Purport. The Lord's descent from his transcendental abode is already explained in the 6th verse. One who can understand the truth of the appearance of the personality of Godhead is already liberated from material bondage, and therefore he returns to the kingdom of God immediately after quitting this present material body. Such a liberation of the living entity from material bondage is not at all easy. The impersonalists and the yogis attain liberation only after much trouble and many, many births. Even then, the liberation they achieve, merging into the impersonal Brahmajyoti of the Lord, is only partial, and there is the risk of returning again to this material world. But the devotee, simply by understanding the transcendental nature of the body and activities of the Lord, obtains the abode of the Lord after ending this body, and does not run the risk of returning again to this material world. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that the Lord has many, many forms and incarnations. Advaitam Achyutyam Anadim Ananta Rupam. Although there are many transcendental forms of the Lord, they are still one and the same Supreme Personality of Godhead. One has to understand this fact with conviction. Although it is incomprehensible to mundane scholars and empiric philosophers, as stated in the Vedas, Eko Devo Nicha Lila Nurakto Bhakta Vyapi Hridyantaratma. The one Supreme Personality of God is eternally engaged in many, many transcendental forms of relationships with his unalloyed devotees. So, this is reflecting also from the Sri Ishopanishad invocation, which says that basically that Krishna is complete unit, and from this complete unit, or complete form, comes many emanations which are complete in themselves. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but what is stated is that there are multifarious energies that Krishna has, and many incarnations and partial incarnations that come from Krishna, but Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is one, the same as his incarnations. It doesn't mean that there are multifarious different kinds of gods and goddesses that are separate from Krishna. This Vedic version is confirmed in the verse of the Gita personally by the Lord, who accepts this truth on the strength of the authority of the Vedas, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who does not waste time in philosophical speculations, attaining the highest perfectional stage of liberation. Simply by accepting this truth on faith, one can, without a doubt, attain liberation. So the cure is there, already there. We don't have to try to analyze, well, is this right for me to take this cure? You know, it's like, well, you take it, this is what's going to happen. Just like when you take a medicine, the person who takes the medicine doesn't question the medicine that's going to make him well. The Vedic version, Tattva Mashi, is actually applied in this case. Anyone who understands Lord Krishna to be the supreme, or who says unto the Lord, you are the same supreme Brahman, the personality of Godhead, is certainly liberated instantly. And consequently, his entrance into the transcendental association of the Lord is guaranteed. In other words, such a faithful devotee of the Lord attains perfection, and this is confirmed by the following Vedic assertion: Tam eva vidit vati mrityumeti nanyaha pata vidyate anyanaya. One can attain the perfect stage of liberation from birth and death simply by knowing the Lord. So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna, the point of all things, and why Krishna tells Arjuna to just surrender unto him, is because all paths and Vedic rules and regulations and whatnot are coming to this point of knowing Krishna. So that's the point, is that we come to know Krishna. And when someone knows Krishna, this is Krishna consciousness. One acts accordingly to knowing Krishna. And knowing Krishna, you go to Krishna. There is no alternative, because anyone who does not understand Lord Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead is surely in the mode of ignorance. Consequently, he will not attain salvation simply, so to speak, by licking the outer surface of the bottle of honey, or by interpreting the Bhagavad Gita according to mundane scholarship. So I love that, how the Bhagavad Gita is considered, the essence of the Bhagavad Gita is like the sweetness of honey, as taught by Krishna himself and by the great sadhus who have learned from Krishna, like Arjuna in this case, and our spiritual masters teach us how do you get into the bottle of honey. So we don't just say, oh, there's a bottle of honey and we're going to lick on the outside by trying to interpret it without any kind of authority except for our own mind and speculation. It won't work that way. It's like licking, seeing the beauty of the honey and just tasting the outside of the glass. Such puffed up mundane scholars have to wait for the causeless mercy of the devotee of the Lord. One should therefore cultivate Krishna consciousness with faith and knowledge, and in this way attain perfection. So we trust the source, and by trusting the source in faith, we have a taste, sometimes the smallest taste, that gives us more faith to apply ourselves deeper in the meaning of the Bhagavad Gita. Text 10. Vita raga baya krodha manmaya mam aparshriyata shritaya taha bhavaho Gana tapasya putamad bhavam agataha. Vita, free from, raga, attachment, baya, fear, krodha, anger, mat maya, fully in me, mam, unto me, upashritaha, being fully situated, bahavaha, many, gana, knowledge, tapasya, by penance, puchaha, being purified, mat bhavam, transcendental love for me, agataha, attained. Translation: being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me. Many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. So, I love this verse. It's just great. Everything about this verse is exactly what the Bhagavad Gita is about. Being freed from this material conception which leads to lust, contemplating the objects of the senses, which leads to lust and attachment and fear and anger. All the things we see going on in the world right now. But how are we freed from this? By reattaching our life, our devotion, our actions in the service of Krishna. Being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me many, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me. And many of us were living lives in that fear and anger in the worst possible ways that maybe someone who's listening to this right now might be living through, and stress, and because the world is just, it's very apparent on how dark and unhappy and stressful this world is without Krishna. But there is a oasis, and the oasis is Krishna's names. It's Krishna and Balaram, Radha Krishna, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, the whole spiritual world, the spiritual masters, the chanting of Krishna's names. The greatest love for God, the greatest love and care is in this oasis around, or as my spiritual master would say, the eye of the hurricane is the most peaceful place. All these things that are going on around our world, we can jump into it and be like thrown around, or like the whirlpool or whatever, but we just take shelter of the center, at the oasis in the center, and we are unaffected. We are living a life of equilibrium for the mukti bhukti kind of cycle of going up and down. There's a little happiness here, there's depression here, there's, we take shelter of Krishna in the good times and the bad times. We always take shelter of Krishna at the feet of our spiritual master in Krishna. And so, by knowledge of me, people are able to be steady, sthitaha. They are able to be steady in their devotion to Krishna, to their spiritual master, and they engage more and more. They go further in. And what is there? For a person who's gone through depression, we know that going deeper and deeper into the depression, when you're depressed, you look to that center place of depression as a surrender. It's like you can go further and further into it, and it just takes you down. It takes you further and further down. So, and it gets more and more difficult to pull yourself out. So I can relate to people who are dealing with like massive depression, but we take that shelter not in our depression, not in ourselves, but in the love of Krishna, and that is our. And then people who have taken that, they see the love. They see the love of their spiritual master. They see the love of Krishna. They have that love in their heart, and it's just wonderful. Just such a great verse. Purport. As described above, it is very difficult for a person who is too materially affected to understand the personal nature of the Supreme Absolute Truth. Generally, people who are attached to the bodily conception of life are so absorbed in materialism that it is almost impossible for them to understand that there is a transcendental body which is imperishable, full of knowledge, and eternally blissful. People are so oblivious to this, and just so completely in that hurricane. Just see it every day. In the materialistic concept, the body is perishable, full of ignorance, and completely miserable. True. Therefore, people in general keep this same bodily idea in mind when they are informed of the personal form of the Lord. For such materialistic men, the form of the gigantic material manifestation is supreme. Consequently, they consider the supreme to be impersonal, and because they are too materially absorbed, the conception of retaining the personality after liberation from matter frightens them. When they are informed that spiritual life is also individual and personal, they become afraid of becoming persons again. And so they naturally prefer a kind of merging into the impersonal void. So this is similar. I mean, impersonalism is very much like depression, I think, too. You go down into this, you want to just like nihilism, like Buddhism, where you want to just be annihilated because everything to do with your mind and your body is so unpleasant. It's so unpleasant that the idea you thinking like, I continue on after this, well, that's just, I don't want to do that. Not realizing what they're talking about. Generally, they compare the living entities to the bubbles of the ocean, which merge into the ocean. That is the highest perfection of spiritual existence, attainable without individual personality. So this is this Brahman merging into the Brahmajyoti impersonalism. This is a kind of fearful stage of life devoid of perfect knowledge of spiritual existence. That furthermore, there are many persons who cannot understand spiritual existence at all. Yeah, they think that they're their body, they think that they're going to die at the end of the life and that'll be it. Being embarrassed by so many theories and by contradictions of various types of philosophical speculation, they become disgusted or angry and foolishly conclude that there is no supreme cause and that everything is ultimately void. Yeah, and this happens a lot because there's so much. I went through this same path of trying to, what is the absolute truth? I read so many things. I read the Quran and I read the Bible and the Torah and the different sutras of the Buddhist faith, and this about Baha'i and New Age stuff, and just all kinds of things, and personalism, and it was just different philosophy, Nietzsche and Camus, and different existentialism and Sartre, and it was just like, this is crazy. I was like, what is the real truth of everything? There's all these people that are like, have their own speculation about things, and it makes you angry and kind of like, or disgusted. Just like, okay, well, anybody who comes to you with a spiritual truth like Bhakti Yoga, you're just like immediately, no, not another one. I've got this thing. I just live. And then this world, the humans are a mistake. I've heard this before. Humans are a mistake. Life is a mistake. It was an accident. And then when you die, that's it. And the humans will be gone, and there will be no whatever. So there are people who think that. So such people are in a diseased condition of life. Some people are too materially attached and therefore do not give attention to spiritual life. A lot of people. Some of them want to merge into the supreme spiritual cause, and some of them disbelieve in everything, being angry at all sorts of spiritual speculation out of hopelessness. The last class of men take to shelter of some kind of intoxication, and their effective hallucinations are sometimes accepted as spiritual vision. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada basically came to America in the middle of the 60s of the hippie movement. People were taking mushrooms and LSD and all kinds of hallucinogenics, peyote, now it's ayahuasca, and all these different kinds of hallucinogenic, and they take it and they have this glimpse of the Brahmajyoti, and they just think, oh, this is a very spiritual experience because I get this feeling of, and really what it is just more like chemical mix-up in your brain that gives you this sort of impression of things. And you may be even entering into the astral body by taking these drugs, but these are not spiritual things. They're just materialism. And so this is, of course, once again, people take to drugs and they call it spiritual, and they form retreats where you can take these drugs and have a spiritual realization, and it's just all ridiculous. One has to get rid of all three stages of attachment to the material world. So there is another attachment: neglect, negligence of spiritual life, fear of spiritual personal identity, and the conception of void that underlines the frustration of life. To get free from these three stages of material concept of life, one has to take complete shelter of the Lord, guided by the bona fide spiritual master, and follow the disciplines and regulative principles of devotional life. So really what a lot of these things are is just different degrees of materialism of this is me. This is the sort of status that Arjuna was in of like, what I think. It's like, I'm God, my opinion, my life. This is, you come into the material world and you think that I want to be in control. I want to be the enjoyer. Spiritual life is, you are not the controller. You are a servant. You're eternally existing in loving relationship with Krishna, but your role is as servant. And so you must surrender your life to here. And that's a really hard thing for people to do. It is. It's all very challenging. The last stage of the devotional life is called bhava, or transcendental love of Godhead. According to Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the science of devotional service, adal strada tataha sadhu sango ta bhajana kriya tato narta nivriti excuse me, sayat tato nishta ruchis tata ata sakti tato babash tata prema buyu dan chati sada kanam ayam premnaha pradur bhave bhavet kramaha. In the beginning, one must have the preliminary desire for self-realization. This will bring one to the stage of trying to associate with persons who are spiritually elevated. In the next stage, one becomes initiated by an elevated spiritual master, and under his instruction, the neophyte devotee begins the process of devotional service. By execution of devotional service under the guidance of the spiritual master, one becomes free from all material attachment, attains steadiness in self-realization, and acquires a taste for hearing about the absolute personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So taste is ruchi in Sanskrit. This is this taste of her love for Krishna. This taste leads one further forward to attachment for Krishna consciousness, which is matured in bhava, or the preliminary stage of transcendental love of God. Real love for God is called prema, the highest perfectional stage of life. So this is all described very thoroughly in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is a wonderful, by Krishnadas Kaviraj, the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. In the prema stage, there is constant engagement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So, by the slow process of devotional service under the guidance of the bona fide spiritual master, one can attain the highest stage, being freed from all material attachment, from the fearfulness of one's individual spiritual personality, and from the frustrations resulting from void philosophy. Then one can ultimately attain to the abode of the Supreme Lord. That is a really amazing purport. And I think you should, I'm just going to mention that again, text 10, chapter 4, to meditate and study that chapter, because that is very detailed, and I think I'm going to go back and read it again and again, because it breaks down a lot of the different kinds of people who follow different paths, or people who are approaching spiritual life, or people that you may come into contact with actually when you're telling people about Krishna. People are at different places spiritually, so these are very thorough, and I'm sure Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada came across them many times in the hippie movement. There were some people who were just like ready, and they took to it right away. I think that's what we're going to, I think we'll leave off there at text 11 till next time. Thank you very much. Haribol.